Hello, Habitat for Humanity Coatesville applicants. Today we will be reviewing the documents required to apply for a Habitat home in Coatesville. Please make sure that you send in copies of the needed items, not the originals. We can't return the original items that have been submitted. And please do not staple items together. Paper clips are just fine. So you need to make sure that your application submission is totally complete. If it's not, we'll need to request updated documents from you, and it just delays the process. So don't skip anything and make sure that all the information is correct. You'll notice first the statement that is highlighted in yellow. Please make note if you do not have 2 years of SSI or income tax returns, you are not eligible to apply at this time. So the first item on this application checklist is the proof of identification. We will need copies of driver's licenses and social security cards for your entire family. If you are new to the United States, you must have your permanent residency status card and have lived or worked in Chester County for at least 1 year. The next line is birth certificates. We need copies of the birth certificates for your entire family. Next is marriage certificate. If you are married, please send a copy of your marriage certificate. The next line is proof of assistance. If you are receiving SSI or child support, food stamps, alimony, etc., you need to provide some documentation as proof of receiving those funds. Next line is pay stubs. You'll need to submit your most recent pay stubs. So today is the beginning of May, so I would need your March and April pay stubs, and as far into May as you have. So that's an example there. Next is checking accounts, credit union accounts, retirement funds, etc. So you'll need to include copies of statements from any of these types of institutions. Please make sure you send copies of the last 2 months. Just as we said in the pay stubs, it's the most recent items. And if it's close to the end of the month, wait to send in your application until you have the most recent statement. This will alleviate me having to contact you for more updated documentation. The next line is about W-2s and income tax returns. So you'll need to send copies of both of your W-2s and your federal income tax returns for the last 2 years. If you only have SSI funds, you will need to send in those statements for the last 2 years. If you're self-employed, current year-to-date P&L may be necessary. Corporate and/or partnership returns may also be needed. The next item we're looking at is employer information. You need to include correct and complete addresses and phone numbers of your present and former employers for the last 2 years. This also applies to landlords, banks, creditors, etc. There are spaces on the application for all of these. You may want to gather all this information prior to starting the application itself. And then here are some items we need only if they're applicable to you. That would be 1099 forms for all other sources of income for the past 2 years. If you've got bankruptcy filing papers, that's a schedule of debtors. We would need all of the pages that are included, the discharge letter, and a letter of explanation from you as to the circumstances surrounding the bankruptcy. And then the last one is complete copies of any divorce and/or separation agreements, of any custody agreements, and any child support orders. So that's that for that page. And then we want to go on to what we're calling the FAQ for Habitat for Humanity homes in Coatesville. And this is a list of basic information for you about the home itself. What's included, how many bedrooms, etc., etc. So I'm not going to go through that word by word. That's something that you can read. The next document that we have is called the Landlord Questionnaire and Authorization to Release Information. This form can either be sent or handed to your current landlord for completion. They should return it to you, and you should include it in your application package to Habitat for Humanity. The 2-line, this is the printed name of your current landlord and their address. The RE line, this is where you put your name. You print it and your current address. The next date and signature line is for internal Habitat use. And then we have the authorization to release information box, which is right there. And by signing this, you authorize your current landlord to provide information to Habitat for Humanity as part of the application process. If there's a co-applicant, please make sure that they sign and date this authorization too. Have your landlord complete the questions, date, and sign. Now we move on to the application itself. So section 1 here, you see that this is applicant information. There you'll see that there's applicant and co-applicant. If you are the only person whose income will be considered for the loan, you would complete just the applicant side of the page. If you have a spouse or significant other who will also be living in the home and you want to use their income considered for the loan too, they should fill out the co-applicant side of the form. You will need to write in your Social Security number, phone number where you are best reached, your age, and your marital status. Where it lists the dependents, you will list all who will be living with you in the home. The next section down is the present address. Please put in the full address and the number of years you've lived there. And if it's been less than 2 years, please complete the next section as well. Okay, now for section 2, you don't need to do anything here. That's just for internal use. Section 3 is the willingness to partner. Partnering with Habitat for Humanity is a big part of the application process. You must be willing to complete sweat equity hours, and that's 200 hours per applicant, in order to be considered for Habitat ownership. Sweat equity is helping to build your home and the homes of others in the program. So please make sure that you're willing and able to complete the required sweat equity prior to checking next to the yes or the no. Now, the next section is your present housing conditions. This section must be completed in its entirety. Circle the number of bedrooms your current home has. Put check marks next to the other rooms that you have also. If you have rooms other than are listed here, please describe them. This could be something like a finished basement, screened-in porch, a laundry room, etc. We need to know what your current rent is, and you must supply a copy of your lease or a canceled rent check. Then you would list the name, address, and phone number of your landlord. The next part of Section 4 is very important, and I urge you to tell your story. Let us know why you would like to be considered for a Habitat home and how it will improve your life as well as the life of your family members. Be as specific as possible. All right, and now we go on to the next page, and it goes to Section 6. So you will see that Section 5 has been removed from the application. 6 is employment information. So please put in full and complete information here. We need the name and address of your current employer, what kind of work you do there. This is under the type of business, and how many years you've been working there. What your monthly gross wages are, and gross wages, that's before taxes are taken out, and a phone number at work where you can be reached. If you've been at your current job for less than a year, please complete the next section with the same type of information. And again, make note that there's the applicant side and the co-applicant side. So if there's one person applying, it would just be on the applicant side. If you have a spouse or a significant other that is going to be living in the home and you're using their income for the loan, they would also have to fill out the co-applicant side. All right, the next section, section 7, is the monthly income. This is where you'll list all sources of income for both applicant and co-applicant. If you have an income source that's not listed here, write it in where it notes other. If you're using income from children or other potential household members for consideration, please list the full name of that person in the box with the heading Household Members whose income is listed above. Okay, that's pretty simple there. Now we go on to section 8. And this is the source of your down payment and closing costs. So Habitat for Humanity requires that you have at least $1,000 saved at the time of your settlement. So this is where you would write down how you plan to get the money to do this, whether it would be from your savings, from a gift from a parent, etc., etc. So that's where you fill that out. Then we go on to section 9, which is your assets. This is where you're going to list funds that you have in checking accounts, saving accounts, retirement funds, etc., etc. So make sure you fill in all of that information, the bank name, the address, the city and state, zip, your account number, and the current balance that is in that account. And you would do that for everything that you listed there. Okay, so we go on to section 10, which is your debt. And you may want to get a copy of your free credit report before filling this out. There may be items on the report that you aren't aware of, and all of your debt must be listed here. So that includes anything that may be listed here, as well as any other like collection items that might be on your credit report, or charge-offs with a balance, etc., etc. So make sure you check that out before you fill it out. And then the second part of that is your monthly expenses. These are items that you would pay for every month. So if you have something that you pay quarterly, let's say, break that payment down and have it listed as something that you would pay every month. So we will know what your current monthly output is. Again, there are other boxes if a type of account isn't listed, so please utilize those. So the next section is declarations. As the instructions indicate here, please check the box beside the word that best answers the questions, and that's for both you and a co-applicant. Remember to explain on a separate piece of paper if a yes answer for questions A through H or a no answer for question I. It's pretty straightforward, so just read carefully. All right, and then we have section 12. This is the authorization and release. So again, take this and read it carefully. By signing and dating this, you authorize Habitat for Humanity to, number one, evaluate your need with regards to the Habitat Ownership Program, the ability to repay a home loan along with other expenses that come with home ownership, and your willingness to partner with Habitat through sweat equity. It's stating that personal visits will take place at your current residence with your family in attendance, the credit and background checks will be done, and employment verification will take place. You're stating that you have answered all of the questions in the application truthfully, and unfortunately, if we find that you haven't, this could actually disqualify you from the program. So make sure that everything that you put down in here is true and complete, and then you'll be just good to go. All right, the next section, section 13, is the right to receive a copy of appraisal. So this is pretty much explanatory. You have the right to receive any copies of appraisals that are done on your new home that you're applying for. All right, and then we move down to section 14. information for government monitoring purposes. So as the instructions indicate, you should read through the statement provided before filling in the information in the box. So you can choose to complete this section or not. Most of our applicants do complete it, but that's totally up to you. And you can see that you need to select your race, ethnicity, sex, your birth date, and your marital status. And then this next section is for internal use. And we only take completed applications being mail or drop off. So this information on the interview is not something that we do. All right, I think the last one here is the Equal Credit Opportunity Act notice. So again, read the content very carefully, sign it, print your name so that we can read it, and then date the form. And then this part will be complete. So thanks for listening. If you have any questions about the application or items that are needed, please give me a call. Thank you so much. Again, this is Susie James, the Director of Family Services for Habitat for Humanity, Chester County.